Which is which? I might as well go outside and dig a ditch. Ain't that a bitch? Somebody ought to know what I'm talking about. Welcome to the May 16th edition of Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play. The theme of last week's show and this week's show and subsequent shows, till further notice, is saving our cities. And we're going to get right into it because, unfortunately, my special guest, was unable to be in studio because she just works that way. And before I go any further, to my immediate left, my doubles partner and one of the finest attorneys in the country. Welcome, Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, Norman Jones.
No, you're too kind.
Not really. Because we got work to do on that doubles thing, man. You know. And he's left-handed, so we cover the court. All right. We handle a lot of business. Now let's get down to the show for today. On the line right now is a sister I've been privileged to know for a few years now, and her roots in Los Angeles run especially deep. And tonight we're concentrating on the theme of saving our cities with the premise that models of possibility and best practice give us the best shot at making it through some very trying times. So please welcome Miss Noreen Clendon. Hey, Noreen.
Hi there. How are you?
If I was doing any better, I had to take something for it. So, Noreen, would you please favor me with a, overview of what Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles is?
So, Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles is a nonprofit community development corporation. Translation, any of the needs that the community express to the leadership at Concerned Citizens or those that are identified as a result of the work we're already doing, we attempt to address that. So since its founding in 1985, we have tackled things like banking, so we established a federal credit union. There was an affordable housing shortage, so we've developed over 700 units of housing. We didn't have a grocery store anchored shopping center, so we developed one of those. Not enough safe places to play, so we developed soccer fields. We've done prisoner reentry work, which we continue to do, employment training. We currently have a ninth council district in Los Angeles, CD9 Jobs Initiative, because one of the biggest problems in attracting business to the community is that our incomes on paper, based on the census data, is so low that companies say they don't have any disposable income, so we shouldn't locate there. So basically, any of the needs that we find in the community, we try to develop those within the community using whatever resources are available, and in particular, creating an economy of our own.
Well, if people really, and they will if I have anything to do with it, begin to appreciate the vast impact you have had as an organization in South Los Angeles, particularly when you look at the time span. You started in the late 80s, and here we are, 2017, and the demographics have shifted dramatically. And when it started, this was in all likelihood a predominantly black community and a predominantly black organization. Is that pretty accurate?
That's exactly accurate. But the interesting thing is that the demographic shift, there are people today who would have you to believe that it is currently in a demographic shift, but that demographic shift happened about 20 years ago. It didn't just happen. It's been going on primarily for a couple reasons. Once the government pumped our community with drugs and guns, those African Americans that had means did the smart thing and got out. They moved, they left. And then there were, because of, again, the drugs, there were families whose properties were still there, but then once the parents died off, the kids sold it or put loans on it and lost it. So we lost a lot of our foothold in that regard. So nobody came and took the community from us. We gave it up.
Well, that pretty much sums it up. What motivates you to carry forward your family legacy of activism? And before you answer that, I have to say that I'm just constantly in awe of your family. And so, if you would please give the history and background of the roots that you come from.
Well, interestingly enough, my immediate family, we actually came here from Philadelphia not that long ago. In 1981, I was the last of the children, and my mother, because her father, my grandfather, his family has been in South Central Los Angeles for about 105 years. Mm. Well, when I left, the AT&T was looking for people with a specific skill to prepare for the 1984 Olympics. And they recruited my mother, and she moved here in 1981, quickly became involved in the issues of the community as she was back in the projects in Philadelphia. And so she was always involved in helping to uplift the community. My brother Eugene started an organization called the Los Angeles Metropolitan Churches. He was heavily involved in prisoner reentry work in the late 80s. There was nobody in the country even considering the plight of those that were formerly incarcerated at that time. And so he made a lot of headway, and he became very well known, but both of them have passed on. But for me, the motivation to continue just comes from, I guess it's in the DNA to want to serve and to want to see our folks do better.
You know, what was your mother's name?
Juanita Tate.
Juanita Tate. Now, that name adorns the buildings. It's on buildings in South LA. Is it a middle school?
There's an elementary school
okay.
At Slauson and Central. We formerly owned that property, and it was the suggestion of Marguerite Lamott, who is now also passed on, but it was her suggestion because we didn't fight eminent domain for them to site that school because the alternative site would have required them to take 65 single-family homes and 14 businesses. And as an organization, we don't give up real estate, but we also didn't think that we wanted others to give up their real estate either. So we said this was the best site where they only had to take something like 12 or 13 single-family homes. So it was her suggestion that they build a soccer field there as that we planned for that site and construct the school in such a way that we can still run our programming. Folks have since gone back on those promises, neither here nor there, but the school is named Juanita Tate Elementary School at Slauson and Maine. And then at the corner of Slauson and Central, there is an 80,000 square foot shopping center that we named after her because it was always planned. The only thing that we actually planned to name after her was the shopping center based on the community's request. And then the building that she was in, a 118-unit senior building at 48th and Central Avenue, is where she was when she had a stroke and died. And so I felt compelled to put her name on that. Now, she would be mortified to know that her name is on that many structures. She would not be happy.
You know,
she was so modest.
You know, it's interesting. I never had a chance to meet her, but her stature in the community still resonates, you know, outside just the boundaries of South Central Los Angeles. But, you know, there's a lot of things going on around the nation, but let's just deal primarily tonight with Los Angeles in terms of development. And how did you guys end up becoming so successful and efficient at competing with all of the major players in the construction and development industry and acquiring the financing? It's a very complicated and arduous process. How did you manage to roll up your sleeves and get in there and become a factor in, you know, redeveloping South LA?
My mother's philosophy was that she would hire a consultant once. The reason for hiring the consultant was that he would teach her staff so that our community retained the knowledge in the community. she also was big on creating an economy of our own so that when we built housing, we became the property managers of that housing, and we pay ourselves a fee every month to do that. So that when she passed on and those powers that be tried to cannibalize our organization and put us out of business by cutting off any grants or city contracts or things that we had, they could not put us out of business because we had a source of funding that was not dependent on them. The other thing that she always made us do was read everything, and I mean everything. So we read everything, and the other side of it is perseverance. There's no substitute for just continuing to say yes when they keep telling you no. Just outwork them. There's no magic, Bobby. There's no magic potion. There's no secret ingredient. It's just hard work, persevering, and not taking no for an answer.
Can you walk us through the 80,000 square foot marketplace? I don't think the city itself has ever really shined the light on that as an example of what local people can do, but walk us through that process.
That took 25 years, Bobby.
Hold on. I think I got must have been a break in my headphone. Did you say 25 years?
25 years, Bobby.
Go ahead.
Okay. Again, I said perseverance, right? Keep saying yes when they keep saying no. Well, the thing is that concerned citizens always look to the community to find out what they wanted. And in 1990, they expressed a need for a grocery store, and they love other services. So concerned citizens set about to look for land. Actually, the community identified that land, and one of the landowners, we tried to work with him, but he was greedy. He wanted us to put in all this time and effort and get grant money and all this kind of stuff and turn around and give it to him as if it had been undeveloped 3 years after it was built, which wouldn't work. So long story short is by the time it became evident that he was not going to partner with us, the city had already applied for and received a grant from the feds to do some other work in that industrial park. So they had to build a shopping center, or they had to give all that money back to the federal government. Well, the city doesn't give money back to the government if they can at all help it. So what they said was they took the land by eminent domain, and he sued the city, which is part of why it took so long, is that every turn that the city made a mistake, he sued them. And finally, when the Community Redevelopment Agency was disbanded, he recognized that if he was going to get the money that he was entitled to because of the eminent domain, he had to just settle. And that's eventually what happened. But I had the money put together, the development, 15 years before it ever actually broke ground. But it was a matter of finding the right people, finding the right players. And interestingly enough, Bobby, the shopping center is a much better center than it would have been had it happened 15 years prior, and this is why. South Central Los Angeles became known as an emerging market. Translation, they realized they do have some money over there to spend. We didn't emerge from nothing. We've been here. Okay? But we became an emerging market, and so we have national credit tenants.
Such as?
Such as Fatburger, Panda Express, Wingstop, Starbucks, CVS, Little Caesars, Yogurtland, Cricket, Chase Bank. We have a Northgate Market, which is a regional market. And then we have a training center in there, a nail shop, dentist office. Just, a great center, which again, 15 years ago, we probably could not have attracted some of those tenants.
Mm-hmm. So answer me this. The changing population, how were you able to get the cooperation of the brown community?
Serve them the same way we serve the black community. Non-discrimination. We didn't care. Whoever is here is who's here. That's who our client is. That's who we are of service to. It doesn't matter what they look like. So the interesting thing is when you provide a roof over someone's head, it kind of endears you to them unless you act a fool and provide a slum condition,
mm-hmm.
which we don't do. So for us, it's always been about serving whoever's in the community. And so we haven't had any difficulty when you provide a safe place for their kids to play and you teach them the same things that we taught African Americans, which was how to access public services, how to get the best out of their schools. When you teach people how to take care of their families and you provide things for them, it's not hard for them to be receptive to you.
Mm. Well, it sounds like it transcends the color divide. And it's so simply stated by you, but very seldom duplicated. So my hat's off to you, and you going about the business to the point where that'll just roll right off your shoulder like water going down a duck's back. But the beauty of it is I'm inspired from day one by your work, and it leads to the next question. What is the number one priority in your estimation within the construct of saving our cities? What will it take to replicate what it is that you're doing as we speak in South Central LA?
The most important thing my mother did was created an economy for us that did not depend on the government. We can no longer expect those people who benefit from our oppression to give us something for us to get out from underneath the oppression, Bobby. We got to change the system. We got to change our thinking. We are presenting a boot camp to help people get into careers in the construction industry and hospitality industries in the 9th Council District. And I'm having difficulty getting people in the community to take advantage of it because they're more concerned about whether they're going to lose their SSI check. $880-some a month is the most you can get. And they're more concerned about losing $881, which is a figure they could earn in a week.
Mm.
But we're constantly looking to those who benefit from our oppression to help us get out from under it.
Mm.
There are too many businesses and things and services that need to be provided on a daily basis in our community that if we did it for ourselves, we wouldn't have to depend on them. Think Rosewood. Think Rosewood. Think of those where they had their own banks, their own services, all of those things that they did for themselves. I'm a believer that integration was one of the worst things that ever happened to black people in America.
Well,
because integration caused us to no longer feel the need to depend on ourselves. The white man's ice got colder.
Still lasts longer.
Right.
But here's the thing that is so tantalizing about this conversation. First of all, I know you got to go in a few minutes, and I'm formally extending you an invitation to the final segment of this Saving Our Cities, which will be in a couple of weeks. But as we begin to wrap up, please give us some anecdotes that people can draw from this conversation we're having tonight and apply it into whatever community they may be in as they listen to this show.
I would say look at the services, look at the resources, the human capital you have in your community. The man down the street who's a handyman, who knows how to fix things, let them teach some of the kids along the way how to do those things so that they can use their hands and make a living on their own. I mean, there are so many ways, again, services, things that we have to do that don't depend on government to support us. We have to look at ways to create income for ourselves and keep that money circulating in our communities. That is the most important thing I see. And it's our mentality, Bobby. We were programmed really, really well. And we have to reprogram and realize that it's on us to do it. We can no longer look to other people to quote unquote save us.
Your pregnant pause allowed that to just settle into my consciousness. And this doesn't happen to me often, wherein because I know that this sister done put in everything. Some people can talk this talk. Mm-hmm. This sister been living this way since I met her, man. I mean, 24/7, and it's a love. She reminds me, in addition to her mother, of women like Ida B. Wells, and Fannie Lou Hamer. I mean, just, man, get out the way. If you ain't on the way, get out the way. Yeah. So, sister, I just had to salute you in that way, because I know that you have to be acknowledged for the amazing work you continue to do, and more importantly, from the spirit and place from which you operate. This is no hype, man. I mean, she's been in this as long as I've known her. So how can people outside of South LA support the work of concerned citizens of South Los Angeles?
And don't forget my South Central. We are concerned citizens of South Central Los Angeles. They tried to get rid of that South Central after they killed it in the media. Now they want, right? They made us a hellhole, and now they want to get rid of South Central. We are proudly South Central LA, OG South Central LA. But you can go to our website and donate. You can always send a check in the mail. All that information on how to reach us is there. We are going to be developing a production studio right in the community to create jobs. So look out for that. If you see anything to donate to that effort, please, by all means, do so. One other thing, Bobby, that I'd like to say is we have to become dedicated to truth. No matter how painful the truth is, whether I have to look myself in the mirror and say, Noreen, you messed up, you were wrong. We have to be dedicated to truth and reality as it exists and not as we would like it to be. And too often, those folks that are, quote unquote, our leaders don't do that. They become embroiled in trying to get the next office or, coveting their profits or whatever it is. But we got to become dedicated to truth.
Noreen.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Noreen, before we close out, Norman has a question for you.
Noreen, how you doing? And I must say I'm inspired, too, by hearing you speak about the issues that's concerning the black community. My question is, what are you seeing in terms of the immediate future? I mean, everyone's excited about this train coming through Crenshaw down the middle of the boulevard, but what do you see in the immediate future in terms of prosperity with the black community behind that project?
I actually am quite concerned about it, Norman, because we don't own the property over there, a lot of that property. We didn't own it. A lot of our folks rented and leased for 20 or 30 years and didn't buy the real estate. But it doesn't mean that we don't have an opportunity to pool our monies together and buy. That's what I would love to see us do. Mm-hmm. If we could learn to trust each other past the front door, I would love to see us. I would be ecstatic to see us pool our money together, not worried about who's on first and who's in charge, and buy up real estate. Listen, we cannot be gentrified out if we own it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? The reality is that we didn't buy up, and what we did have and what we do have, we continue to sell it off. So I'd love to see us, if we want to remain a factor, we must buy real estate. We must. We must. There is no other way.
And you know what you must do? You must promise me you'll come in studio, and I'm gonna give you a couple weeks notice now. And, move some stuff around,
Okay.
because this subject is far too important, not just in Los Angeles but across this country. And you're absolutely on point. So I'm not gonna say farewell. I'm gonna say I'm seeing you in a couple of weeks. But thank you for taking time out, because you got to go and do some of this teaching right now. She has a class. She starts at 6 o'clock.
I have a class I teach with men who were serving life sentences. I teach a class on relationships, and I see them walking up as we speak. So I am on my way. I appreciate you, and yes, Bobby, I'll come in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you, sweetheart.
Thank
Hey,
you guys.
please, in some way, just kind of warm your heart up, since we don't have a live audience, and salute this amazing sister, Noreen Clendon, the executive director of Concerned Citizens of South Central Los Angeles. Okay, we're going to take a short pause for the calls, and then we'll be right back. We are black. And again, I want to thank Noreen Clendon for just giving us a model of possibility. Absolutely, the very best practices I've heard of in quite some time. And again, this is Norman Jones. I've had the pleasure of knowing Norman for a few years through the sport of tennis, and outstanding athlete. Now, you're originally from Houston, Texas, right?
Yeah.
And he's left-handed, smooth with his game, smooth with his life. So in a couple of minutes, kind of give him a little biographical snippet, if you would.
Well, raised in the South, Southern boy, so you never lose that. And joined the Marine Corps many years ago and came to Los Angeles. I was stationed in San Diego, went through Camp Pendleton, boot camp at MCRD. It was the middle of what they call winter out here when I went through boot camp. And coming from Texas and the South, you have winter. And I came out and went through boot camp, and I said, wow, if this is winter, I got to live out here, because it gets cold in Texas. It's wet, gray, overcast, cold weather. And after I finished my stint with the Marine Corps, went back to Texas. I went to Texas Southern University, where I completed my undergrad work in political science and administration of justice. And went to work for the state of Texas for a small stint in the juvenile parole division out of Austin, Texas. And after that, I went to law school at Thurgood Marshall there in Houston. And before I finished there, I moved away, went to the East Coast, and I finished law school out on the East Coast. But I made my way back to California. That was my ultimate goal. And when I moved back to California, I came back into real estate and not law. And the interesting thing is, one of my classmates in law school, he was from California. So he called me and said, hey, you need to come out here. Real estate is gold. And so that's how I ended up in California and in real estate and still practice law, but I've got over 25 years of experience in real estate and real estate matters, as well as purchasing and selling.
So how do you supplement your ventures in real estate with the fact that you do possess a degree in law?
Well, one thing about a legal education is the mindset, the analytical process of all of it. You learn not only the law, but now you learn the application as well as the exceptions to the law. And law is a fascinating subject. It's fascinating. And that was the thing that really kept me interested. To learn law is to get involved and become immersed in it and become part of it, and it becomes part of you. The first thing you learn in law school is that she's jealous.
That's the mistress, huh?
Yes, and so you don't, your first year in law school, professors will tell you this, and you don't really know what that really means until you get that first exam, and you realize you didn't spend enough time with her.
Oh.
So if you had a social life, you no longer have a social life. But it works hand in hand. Anyone that approaches life with a legal education, after that, everything becomes analytical. You look at the pros and cons. Your understanding is much clearer of what the issue is. Everything in life becomes an issue, and that issue is what you become an expert in analyzing, whether it be a criminal law issue, whether it be a contracts issue. That is where you hone your skills and learn how to resolve the problem or the issue.
I want you to use those analytical skills to process the following question, and that is how, first and foremost, as a people identified as African American, Black, depending on what era you're talking about, how do we manage and maneuver through the absolute chaos that we're faced with from the White House all the way to the outhouse? How do we prioritize our objectives and find a way to do better than we're doing right now?
That's an interesting question, and it's got many different approaches and many different answers to it. But there's one answer that.
Okay, let me qualify that question more specifically. Within the theme of saving our cities, and in the process saving ourselves.
Yeah. Again, when you look at the dynamics of the Black community, you have to look at the Black family. And
it's a mess.
It is, by design. And a lot of people won't accept that.
Well, let's accept the fact that it's a mess. And
I worked in juvenile parole for about 5 years. There was one common denominator in every family that was broken, that was scattered, and that was there was no structure. Black men, in particular, and in the history of this country, have always been the target. And if you can bring down the head of the household and demoralize it, break it, then you don't have that structure that is needed. See, what I grew up looking at, and more than likely what you grew up looking at as a kid, I saw my father get up in the morning and he went to work. That's what he did every day. And on Sundays, he got us ready and we went to church. That's what we did every Sunday. Now, whatever you believe in, and I don't want to get on a religious kick or anything like that, but that was a discipline that you did over and over and over again. And in that, education was the base. Because if you're going to better yourself, you got to have an image to look at. Every kid needs an image. Mentor, father, uncle, someone that they look up to that is successful. And it doesn't mean you have to be in the White House. It just means that I got a mortgage that I can pay, I got a job that I go to every day, and I keep this family together. And throughout the history of this country, it has been an ongoing attack upon the Black male.
Okay, let's reshape the question in the interest of time. You have been able to impact businesses as well as families and individuals. Outside of the obvious example that you just shared with us, how have you been able to overcome those obvious impediments?
I like the answer that Noreen gave a moment ago, being persistent. Because you have doors closed and you get no all the time. but you have to be consistent at being persistent and going for what it is you want out of life. Bottom line, you let no one stop you and let nothing stop you from what it is that you want to achieve in life. And so many of us were discouraged because we look and we see the unjust and the injustice brought against the black community.
Okay.
And we give up. We just give up.
Well, some of us are sitting here right now that haven't gave up. So
Right.
let's really, kind of nail down on saving our cities in terms of some of the conversations we've had in between tennis battles.
Yeah.
We've kind of shared, visions and what have you. So when we talk about this corridor, when we talk about all the pockets of development that's going on in the greater Los Angeles area, and then I guess confine that to some of the conversations we've had about the possibilities. After talking to Noreen, for example, and knowing that last week on the show I had some people from Chicago, we getting ready to make some moves. My association with the National Association of Minority Contractors nationally, Jim Brown's American program, the Coalition for Equitable Contracting in Chicago, and then there's just individuals sprinkled, like Brother David Banner, for example, who and Dr. Andre Brown, they are collaborating on some things in Mississippi and the Southeast. How do we begin, and let me put it this way, are you willing to use your expertise given an opportunity to plug into something that's moving in the direction of saving our cities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we not only should, but we have a responsibility and obligation to our black communities to connect with each other and see these projects through from beginning to end. Your example, I mean, just media here is powerful. You can't run down to CBS, NBC, and ABC and say, "Hey, I'm Bobby, and I want a spot."
I could, but I'm gonna get put out.
Yeah, well, you'll be in a long line. But just what you're doing is bridging the gap. Because how many people now know about Noreen? I do. I didn't know about her before this telecast. I do now. And she will hear from me again, and she will not only hear from me, but she will get my help and her support in what she's doing to go and teach a class for long-term felons who are coming back into the community. We don't have enough of that.
Well, it's interesting, in the interest of time, that we skip ahead a little bit. You're familiar with the Crenshaw corridor, as well as most of the major developments going on in and around Southern California and in the Bay Area, too.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we need to find a way to create a consortium of like-minded people that you don't have to drag, that are good at what the process needs them to be good at, and follow the example that she just talked about over in the Watts area, right? Which means that people would have to get out of the way, because first and foremost, we do have some issues with women power. All right, and this sister ain't coming like that. She just sits down in front of whoever, and she just deals how it need to be dealt with. And in that construct, I think that she would be a person that would be an invaluable asset to any group of people that came together and said, "Look, let's just take an assessment of what's left."
Yeah.
And even the properties that have been sold, how can we create some ventures using the leverage of what population we got left in this community?
And she hit on it. She said, the black community got a lot of money. Lots of money here.
Yeah, but our bucket got a hole in it.
Yeah, but
it goes in there and it just keeps going right on out.
You know what?
We never capture any of that money.
That's because we haven't really been educated with finances, economics. Our young kids are just now starting to get it, but the generations before them, they missed a lot of that. And as a result of that, it was mind my own business, take care of my own. But if you put together 10 millionaires, and we got hundreds of black millionaires, but we get just 10.
We can get one millionaire and several thousandaires, however that configuration.
Shoot for the moon.
Well,
shoot for the moon.
And then
No,
if
we want 10 millionaires.
All right.
1,000aires, they're gonna be on board anyway because that's gonna make them millionaires. No, we want millionaires.
I feel you, and I'm just so.
We got them.
I know we got them, and they so. It's a challenge, but we'll accept the challenge. All right,
Absolutely.
we'll accept the challenge because that is necessary to find folks that's got discretionary income. That they really wouldn't, if the deal went bad, they haven't lost anything. That's really how America really prospered exponentially. The people who had money were able to put certain money at risk without affecting their lifestyle.
Without affecting their lifestyle. And here's the thing, Bobby, you have the voice. What people look for once you get them together, what are we going to do? See, a lot of times we get them together, but there's no plan. Don't call me if you don't have a plan. Okay? In my business, if you're calling me, you want a service.
Right, exactly.
You're not calling me to chit-chat. Okay? And for that service, I'm going to present a plan to you to get the job done. So we have to have a plan together. And this format that you are operating from, you can reach a lot of people. And there are a lot of people out here in our community who's ready and willing. They just haven't gotten a call. They here.
That's a good way to put it, and it provides a level of optimism. And let's kind of spread the net a little bit here and address the fact that we're living in unprecedented political and social times. From where you sit, what is it that we need to be aware of, and how do we react to it? In this sense, you can't turn on a device, whether it's a television, an iPad, or whatever, without the dominant news of each day for almost a year now. It's been about Donald Trump. How do we deal with the madness emanating out of the White House and still be able to, try to find pockets of opportunity?
From my time that I've lived in Washington, D.C., it's a whole nother world there. From here, probably very, very little that we can do about it. But what we have to do is to make sure that we vote in our own interest, man. That's
it's going to be a while before we can vote again.
We may have to ride this wave out, and I'll tell you why. I know you don't want to hear that.
A lot.
I know you don't want to hear that, but when you make a foolish decision based upon
which one are you talking about? Having Hillary be the Democratic nominee?
No.
Allowing him to become president.
Allowing him to become president, because a lot of people were saying, "Well, I can't vote for Hillary," and so that meant you'd rather vote for something that's going to be worse than what this is. The lesser of two evils is the way they was putting it.
Let's face it, man. This was so improbable.
Yeah.
That he would win, that even I still believe to this day that he's shocked that he won.
Oh, he was.
Now, the person that's not shocked is the fantastic team that he surrounded himself with. That guy Banner is the devil incarnate. Yeah. But he's a brilliant tactician, and he fed into the fears of the poor white folks, and they played to the black population with, Hillary crooked. You might as well just not vote. They didn't even try to get us to vote for Donald Trump. They just encouraged us not to vote by highlighting her flaws to the extent that it really worked, and it depressed the black vote to the extent where we couldn't pull it through.
And on top of that, there were a lot of factors. Hillary didn't reach out to some of those poor white folks.
No. She paid for it.
And she should have. She took it for granted. And I think a lot of the American voters just took it for granted. See, California, we're a blue state. And if you look at the numbers of the people who turned out to vote, it wasn't a large number.
No.
But we're a blue state. So a lot of people said we're blue, we'll never be red, so they didn't vote. But in other parts of the country, they took it for granted and they woke up in a red state.
And I think in some ways it's actually a potential blessing in this way. We've been sleepwalking through the political process. Once we were allowed the opportunity to vote, we just locked in on voting Democrat because before FDR, black people voted 100% Republican because of Abraham Lincoln freeing the slaves. And we never questioned why we voted Democrat our Republicans so loyally, no matter what. You know, it's been a lot of very prominent racists like Bill Bo down in Mississippi and Bull Connors in Alabama, George Wallace. They were Democrats, you know, John Stennis.
Oh, yeah.
But they were Democrats.
Yeah.
They were in the Democratic Party. They didn't leave till we got in there.
Right.
And then they switched over to Republican. So that's the racial component of it. But the reality is this. We never did flesh out the process and understand that your vote is only as important as the ability to protect your interests, which means you got to understand the monetary side of the election process. You know, because people put that badge on, I voted, and they get a form letter from their representative. But if you wrote a big fat check, first of all, you got a list of demands for that politician.
Right.
And we never have progressed to that level of sophistication, and therefore it didn't really matter who got elected. We were not in the picture in terms of the prosperity. And I say that in order to get back to saving our cities and then being able to look at all of the, as you said, the component parts of doing that. And there's people like Sister Noreen who has waged both wars.
Right.
All right. And it's important that we lean on those types of people as we construct that plan that gives us a fighting chance in the middle of this mess, man. Because this is a hot mess right here.
I think that, you know, you hit the nail on the head. It's going to take some educating and re-educating, and just going to take people to be consistent.
And I think we got to excite people at the formative level, because the masses are always going to be the masses. And there's got to be, I think, a groundswell that starts with folks, again, who have the same common interest in doing better.
And doing better,
and
absolutely.
then doing better by doing good. Because it's a difference, you know, because you can do better if you want to go out and start selling dope. You can make a lot of money. There's a lot of things you could do to just make money, but to make a difference, as Noreen said, you look at what does a community need, and then start filling those needs. And it really starts here and now, because I had you on here strategically, because you have a brilliant mind and a successful track record at doing deals. And I want to use this as one of the platforms where we have the kind of discussions that lead to a sit-down of like-minded folks with the objective of doing the types of things that have already been done before, just not by us.
Right. Well, and I agree with you. We have to put a plan together. She's got a plan, and she's been working it diligently. She's getting results from that. But like I said, we have a lot of people in our community who are ready. They just haven't gotten a call. I'm positive that the black community's future is going to be stronger than ever before, because we have a younger generation that's awakening. For example, Black Lives Matter. A lot of people didn't understand that movement, including myself in the beginning.
I still don't.
Oh, well, you should, because that's the future. These young people, let me tell you.
There's a difference between young people and Black Lives Matter to me. The difference is that's a slogan.
You have to understand, though, the mindset.
What is the mindset?
The mentality. Well, first of all, they see the leaders, the establishment, saying one thing and doing another thing. See, if we are this great country, America, then we should be doing right by all the citizens.
Okay, tie that to Black Lives Matter for me. So
I am. Hold on just a second. And I'm not trying to give them a ringing endorsement or anything. I understand. I look at everything.
Well, help me understand.
Okay. When you have young people looking at the establishment, and we are supposed to be the greatest in the world, and we have all of the double standards, okay, these young people see that. They recognize that. Okay, so when you are going to lead me into the future with these double standards, they already know they are lost. There's not going to be any jobs for them. They're going to come out of college in debt, and they are going to be still staying at home. They know this. Okay? Young people communicate more effectively than ever before through modern technology than we have.
Well, what are
ever.
they talking about?
They're talking about
Black Lives Matter?
changing the course.
Well, change the name to changing the course, because Black Lives Matter.
Well,
I just see
and a
t-shirt.
lot of
That's all I
people,
see is a t-shirt.
they got caught up on the name, and I think if you get caught up on the name, you miss the message.
Well, that's what they have.
And that's what I did in the beginning. But I started exploring. I started talking. I stared listening to what is the conversation.
Because we only got a couple more minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to put you in charge of the Black Lives Matter segment.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Don't even try that.
No, that's on you. You said you understand it, bro.
I do.
Look, man,
I do.
We got responsibility. One of your duties is to, bring the Black Lives Matter component
Bring some young
into
people
saving
in here.
our cities.
Okay.
Not in here necessarily, but into that element of the movement.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody got to deal with it.
Quickly, let me give you an
example.
example. People who voted not in their own interest in this past election.
That was most people.
There was a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they understood after the fact that my medical coverage is going to be.
Adios, amigo.
Yeah. Okay. That was a clever campaign ad that worked, and it started.
Which one you talking about?
To do away with Obama.
Oh, they said they were going to give you choices. They did. Choices to go broke and dead.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
they didn't educate themselves.
Who didn't?
The people that voted against their own interests.
Oh.
And I don't want to, you say white folks. I don't want, because I have white clients, okay?
I ain't talking about white. Why do you think I was going to say white folks?
Poor white people.
Those who we talk. Look, man,
They didn't
went
vote
out
in their
and
own
drove.
interest. They didn't vote in their own interest.
They never have.
Young people saw that. And they disconnected. They don't understand how we keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Okay.
How do you keep doing this?
All right. So here's your responsibility going forward, man, as we begin to put this team together, this dream team.
Mm-hmm.
You are officially in charge of the Black Lives Matter segment of the movement, and all we want from you is a report every now and then.
Okay.
In terms of how T-shirt sales is going.
No, that's not how I operate. I will get you.
I want to know what they do.
Information that will enlighten listeners.
Oh, okay.
That's what. See, the problem with Black Lives Matter is that a lot of people got turned off to it very early because it was connected with the street protests and all of the negativity. See, our media in this country has a lot to do with how you see things.
Oh, the optics run the outcome in terms of public opinion.
If the media don't give you a good image,
then you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what it was an uphill battle for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, I was in the same boat. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to be bothered with it. And then I started looking.
I'm not going to waste your
you know.
talents on this kind of conversation. I did that because we kind of drifted into that lane.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I want to thank you so much, Norman, and I want you to make the same pledge that Noreen has made to further engage, because we pretty much know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's a matter of getting the pieces in place,
Absolutely.
and your assets are invaluable to advancing this particular objective, and that is saving our cities and in the process saving ourselves.
Right.
Because I think there's a direct connection between the two. So I want to thank you, and you have an open invitation, but believe me, that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And just so that y'all know, if there's any of y'all out there that think you can play some tennis, or for that matter, basketball, because the brother got a pretty smooth jump shot himself, and I'm telling you right now, I'm finger rolling all day. So any way y'all want to do it, but Norman, for people that might want to use your services, how can they get in touch with you?
My direct line and answering service is 323-251-2490.
One more time.
323-251-2490, and that's 24/7.
And that's Norman Jones, Esquire, amongst other things. As I wrap up tonight, I just want to thank my guest from last week, Eddie Reed. Eddie Reed was the brother who allowed this young brother from the Marcus Garvey's UNIA to participate in the show out of Chicago. And I'm going to do my best not to mess his name up again by just saying Brother Farrell. All right, because I still ain't managed his first name yet. And my dear associate brother Philip Lowry, who is one of the, driving forces behind the coalition for equitable contracting in Chicago, which you'll hear more about as we move to the conclusion of this series, Saving Our Cities. And as always, as I close, thank you for letting me be myself. And we hopefully will see you next week. And if the show in some way provided you with some inspiring information, tell somebody about it. We greatly appreciate it. And to my producer tonight, Johnny Morris and LaRon. Johnny is the dad of O.G. Portis, and I've known him since Hush was a puppy, man. You did a great job for me tonight, Johnny. Take us home, man.
All right.